Hello and welcome to the Young Green Local Government debate, the first of the 8th part of the Polish Young Greens training of the same name, which aims to support future local government leaders and develop green ideas for local government in Poland. The event is supported by the European Green Party as part of the FYEG Young Greens recovery program. I would like to remind people who have signed up for the workshops in Polish that the first of them, defining a green local government, will take place right after the debate at 16. And today, we will talk about how young local governments officials from all over Europe implement the green program in their cities and regions. If you have any questions to them, just write them in Facebook comments. And our guests are Justine Pantelejeva, from Councilor of Riga from Protest Latvian Young Greens.
Hey, should I say a few words? Yeah, I'm a local councillor. I've been local councillor of Riga just a month and a half, so I'm a newbie at the job. I'm also part of Protest, as Igor's already mentioned. I was one of the founding members of Protests 2 years ago almost, and I've been also a part of CDN's Alternative Urbanization Working Group for years now, and consider myself also kind of a part of the Green European family. And that will be, I think, in short, I can say about myself.
Thank you. So second guest is Isaura Calsyn, Vice Mayor of Eeklo, Flanders, and also member of the Young Flanders Young Greens.
Hi everyone, I'm Isaura Calsyn. I'm, as Igor said, a vice mayor or deputy mayor in Eeklo. It's a small city between Ghent and Bruges in Flanders. We have about 21,000 inhabitants, and yeah, so I'm part of the board who makes the decisions, so it's very exciting. I do this job for 2 years now, and I'm still learning. So in 2024, new elections will come, and then we'll see if I'm still part of it. Yeah, I'm also very glad to be here, to be part of the European Young Green movement. I also did a few seminars a few years ago with the Young Greens, the European Young Greens. It was very fun, so I'm glad to be here as well today.
So good luck in your next elections. And our last guest is Pascal Vullo, the councillor of district in Bolzano or Bozen in South Tyrol, also member of the Young Greens of South Tyrol.
Yeah, hello. Nice to meet you, everybody. Yeah, my name is Pascal Vullo. I'm a councillor for district council in Bolzano, Bozen in South Tyrol. Maybe you don't know South Tyrol. South Tyrol is like an autonomous province in Italy. Like after the First World War, it was like it went from Austria to Italy, and we have 3 language groups here: German, Italian, and also Latin. Latin is a really small language that people speak in some mountain valleys. We are in the middle of the mountains here in the Dolomites, in UNESCO World Heritage. And yeah, I'm a councillor of City Quarter Council. Bolzano has 100,000 inhabitants, and it is divided into 5 city quarters, and mine is called Haslach Oberau, Aslago Oltrisarco. Everything has 2 names here. It has like 14,000 inhabitants, which is a small quarter of Bolzano, but compared to my hometown where I come from, it's bigger. Because yeah, maybe I have to tell you that I grew up in Germany, in the south of Germany, next to Stuttgart. My mother is German, and my father is Italian from Sicily. My grandfather emigrated to Germany as a guest worker to work in the German car industry in the 70s. And yeah, somehow I finished up in South Tyrol in Italy because I was searching for my roots, my Italian roots, and I went to finish my studies here in South Tyrol in Bolzano, and I stayed here. And I went into politics only here because politics is very interesting here. It's very particular. We have this autonomy, so we have a lot of competences. We can decide upon many things on our own, apart from like defense. We have a lot of power, but it's very small, the region. We have like 500,000 inhabitants. It's very small. And we have these 2-3 language groups, and also at least two different political cultures, the like Austrian German political culture and the Italian culture. In Bolzano is also a melting pot. We have 2/3 of Italian speaking population and 1/3 maybe more or less German speaking, and it's depends on the single quarter also. And yeah, so politics is very interesting here, but also like complicated and complex, and yeah, it's fun to make politics here, also because there's no public funding for politics in Italy, and so we have very little money, and so as green activists you can just do campaign, and yeah. And now I've just been elected in this district council in September, and yeah, I'm just starting, and I'm very excited also to start it. And also I'm also like international. Yeah, I follow the activities of the Federation of Young European Greens for the Young Greens South Tyrol, because we are, even if we are really small, we are a full member. Yeah, that's all I think for the beginning.
Thank you. It was very interesting explanation. So let me start with the first question to all of our speakers, and it is, what does your work in the local government look like, and what topics do you deal with? And maybe let's start with Isaura, as your most experienced councillor here.
Okay, so my work here in the local government is very interesting. We can make the daily decisions. So together with my 6 other colleagues, we make the daily decisions for our city. So every day we learn something new, and there are a lot of discussions, of course, about which policy we want to build for our city. But every day is interesting. The topics that are my concern is youth, culture, and education. So the link between those 3 topics is also very interesting. I can make a lot of bridges between those 3 topics. So if I want to start a project in my city about culture, I try to do that with the link with education or youth. So yeah, that's the things that I'm building my policy around. And youth is a very important one, because you can do a lot with it. You can put your own accents into it. So my interest is in social policy as well. So I try to make a connection between youth and social policy to make that link stronger. I think it's very important in this job. So yeah, that's a short overview about what I'm dealing with on a daily basis. But if there's questions from the viewers, then I will discuss it a little further. Maybe first give the platform to my colleagues in this debate.
Thank you for your answer. So maybe who wants to be next? Justine?
First of all, I wanted to say a few words of my city. like noticed that I didn't introduce it so well as my fellow colleagues. Riga is the capital of Latvia, so it's the biggest city in Latvia. We have around 40,000 people. So I think the scale here is really interesting, and I actually admire you colleagues that are working in smaller cities. It might be more yeah, I mean, action based, you know, you can daily discussions around like practical things you can see and discuss. So we have a bigger structure. We have, I'll just say, like, we have 60 councillors in our local council. And we have around, I think there are 8 political committees overseeing the departments, topical departments, and we have to work, as every councillor in Riga works in 2 committees. And my 2 committees that I'm working in is our development, city development committee, and the traffic and mobility department, the department or committee. So it's really interesting as they're kind of really connected to each other, but like the previous political let's say period, we had like a different mayor, a different coalition. We have completely changed this election, and we'll talk more later about the campaigning stuff. And but we have, like, we are the party. I was running on a list that we were combined with 3 other liberal, left, green parties, and we won the election and overturning the kind of 10-year previous political coalition. So that was a big change. So we are coming in our coalition, a broader coalition. A lot of us are young politicians, and like not only young in the sense that first time in local elections, but first time in any kind of a political game. So it's really interesting. So we are kind of love activists and love specialists coming in and like really wanting to work and trying to change things. So it's really, why I'm saying this, is kind of hard to do it if you haven't had the kind of previous political experience. Especially if we are talking about like a big city and big structure, political and the specialist or department level. And yeah, so my daily, I can't really say like my work in local government now looks a bit hectic, because we have been only here for a month and a half. So we're trying to figure out the ins and outs and how to work in coalition, and how like working, I'm working, for example, in those 2 committees are chaired by our coalition partners, so not directly by our party or fraction. So it also makes really interesting, how do I work with different political colleagues, and how to communicate, and how are how do I proceed with my initiatives or our political initiatives. So that's kind of learning point and learning curve. And considering the topics or the main challenges is that the previous political force or political coalition left big gaps in a lot of places. One, I don't want to focus solely on corruption, but there's a lot of bad planning, let's say. There's not a lot of there are a lot of things that should and will have to be needed to change. And we have really bad infrastructure left in place. Some of our bridges are not collapsing, but they need to a lot of investments. And we are now focusing on how to rebuild our mobility infrastructure. We had this big discussion on a street, one of the major streets that until now were designed only for cars, changing up a bit and letting bicycle infrastructure there. And well, we'll have a experiment from December 1st, but up until now, we have a big discussion on media, and like ministers of government are now taking part in discussion, should there be bicycle infrastructure or not. But our focus here is to make our infrastructure and mobility more citizen focused, more environmentally friendly, and looking at the city development from a perspective of social cohesion, which is one perspective that has been or is rather left behind when we talk about investments. So we need investments, we need big paying jobs here, but how does that impact the social fabric of the city, not only spatially, but also corresponding to education and knowledge, and how do we make more coherent like our social structure in terms of socio-economic perspective. This was really a long answer, but I hope this kind of gives you an insight to Riga.
Thank you for your answer. And Pascal, you're also newly elected, so you may say also, how do you imagine your work will look like, or how it looks like now?
Yeah, thanks, Igor. Yeah, so I'm a councillor for a local district of Bolzano, which is like the lowest political level you can work on, I think. We meet only once a month. So it's a small council. We think we are like around 10 members. And yeah, our power is quite limited. So that's why also there have been a lot of discussion in the past about even abolishing these city district councils, because some people say they doesn't really make sense to maintain them. It's not worth it. On the other hand, you really can work on the city district. You are really close to the people. You work on really details like really small measures, how to change like the traffic light in one street, or to keep the parks clean, or really small things. We have a small budget also, which is really small, like for 8,000 euros per year for small initiatives, for events. For example, we have once a year, we have this bike day in Bolzano, where the whole city center is closed, or most of the town is closed for cars, and it's on Sundays, and people go around by bike, and they can collect a stamp at every station, and it's like a little competition also, and then there's a lottery and you can win a bike. And this is a great thing because we have a quite strong bicycle culture here. We have like, I think 50 kilometers of bike lanes here, and like 1/3 of all the ways are done by bike. And there's other events also, for example, on Plastic Free Bolzano, where we had, for example, like a plucking event where you run around in the city, you run around, and in the meantime, you pick up trash on the streets or along the rivers. Yeah, and so this is I think it's very useful, even working on small initiatives with a really small and limited budget. And of course, we can also ask for additional budget to the city council if we really want to, or we can give input to the local government, and we can give an opinion about the budget of our town. And of course, we can give opinions about all decisions that are relevant for our city quarter. Yeah, so let's see, because I have just started. We haven't really started working, and but I'm really curious to see what we can do. For example, another nice initiative is like from my predecessor. He was also a Young Green before me in the city district council of my quarter. They put like a telephone box on in the middle of the city quarter, where you can put books inside, and you can take one. So it's a small library in a telephone box, and it's like it's working really well, and that's why we want to replicate this idea in other places in the city. And so I think also on the lowest political level you can do very interesting, very useful things.
Oh, yes. So thank you for the answers on the first questions. To be working in local government, you first had to be elected. So that's my second question. What was the election campaign like, and what topics did you raise? And did you focus more on youth? So maybe now let's start with Justine, as the campaign was this summer.
Yeah. So first of all, like a little bit backstory. This was a snap election because the like predecessor and their coalition were sacked basically by the regional ministry that are overseeing municipalities in Latvia. And so we were supposed to have elections back in February. So in late December 2019, they were officially sacked, and then the snap elections were announced. And so due to Corona, they were transferred, or the date was set to June, but again, due to Corona, it was pushed back to August. So from a campaign that should have been 60 days, we ended up a campaign period of 8 months. So it's super crazy. It was exhausting, it was long, it was tiresome, and for a lot of us, it was first time campaigning. And there were a lot of things that were on the line, and more like a sense that we needed change, because the previous coalition that only consisted of 2 parties were in power for 10 years. And like a lot of people were dissatisfied with that. And there are a lot of reasons why that was the case, like why were they for so long in power. That's another story. But so the main point is that we had 8 months of campaigning, which was, so campaigns are usually divided into kind of 3 phases. Like, first of all, you are telling who are you, just introducing yourself and proving yourself as a candidate itself. And then the second phase is you are focusing on more policy issues. And the third one is just basically get out to vote actions. And that's how we proceeded. And my topics, like my previous experience up until this September, I was working actually in civic council, but I was working as a strategic planner. So it was in the executive level. And that was my kind of expertise. I already knew a lot of things were going on and like a lot of issues. But I had to, the one thing that I think it's really interesting, and no one says that beforehand, especially if you're a young person candidating, and if the election is big enough, then you have to adjust your messaging. So you have to prove like some kind of angle, choose an angle that works for you. And I had this kind of an interesting experience of going through, like, I can't talk about infrastructure because I'm too young and I'm a woman. So the people wouldn't buy it, or people wouldn't take me seriously. And this is something that was really hard for me to learn, because I could talk on those topics, you know, and I consider myself knowledgeable of those, but the reality is what it is. So I had to find a new angle on which I would be like truthful enough. I had experience on, and I would be really passionate about. I'm really against, and I think this doesn't count on green politicians that like usually a lot of politicians just use topics that are like in the air, that are like people are interested in, and then they're just like going with it. What really at least in Latvia, I would say that people really want authentic politicians that really are passionate about those things that they're telling or putting on their campaign. So if I could talk about the big infrastructure project we are having, then I had to find a new angle. And one thing that I was really good at and I'm passionate about is a youth perspective. I've been like involved in youth activism and green activism for 4 or 5 years already, and I had established an organization. So I was okay, like I can do from this perspective, and that was my aspect. I was talking more about like how to combine youth and urban planning. That was one kind of specific and perspective and point of view that if we are investing in public space, then we should also count or take into account what can young people do in those public spaces. We can see in Riga we had like big infrastructure, public infrastructure, let's say museums redeveloping or having refurbishment, and they were developing whole building and the public infrastructure around it, you know, like a square where people can sit. And what ended up with, like, there were a lot of skaters, a lot of young people just like hanging out, and that kind of made an impact between those like museum, which they weren't supposed to have like young people in their public space, damaging the infrastructure. So my point of view was just like, hey, can we not do this? We should just like take into account that we can and we should have young people skating there. Just like one point of view. And then second one was climate change. Of course, we cannot not talk about it. Riga has and Latvia in general, I think, lacks strong progressive climate action policies. And that's what we run as progressives as well, was to have Riga as the first climate neutral Baltic state, city, capital city. Even though like climate neutrality is a problematic headline, if we go into deeper, the baseline was that we need to have a climate plan and just climate action and how the capital city contributes to the climate change. So these were the two perspectives that I tried to emphasize in my campaign. And how I did it was doing a lot, mostly just like from my phone filmed videos. So you don't have to have a lot of money to do kind of a lot of great things. I had a help with someone who filmed it and tried to adjust my messaging. But basically, a lot of my videos that I put on my social media was just made with my phone. And this is why I'm saying this. Don't be afraid if you're thinking of running local elections and you don't have money. It sometimes doesn't take so much money, it just takes a lot of creativity. For example, the last video that we made also was made with my phone. It was Get Out and Vote video that we just filmed doing me and other candidate just going around city and doing silly stuff. For example, I just popped out of a flower bed on the street and saying, like, if you want to have more green and more flowers in the city, just get out and vote and stuff like that. And it was really wide shared. And I think that also these kind of things also kind of really contributed to me having me getting elected, for example. Yes, That's in short, and a short answer from me would be it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So now let's hear Pascal. You also remember your campaign?
Yeah, I still remember it. It's not a long time ago, but I think many things happened in the meantime. Yeah, so we had like 3 main points for our campaign. Of course, climate and environment. So Bolzano, we want to Bolzano to be a green city, of course. Then youth culture and affordable housing. So I think regarding climate and environment, yeah, we managed to put into the program of the government that Bolzano is going to be emission-free until 2035, and there will be like a consultant, like monitoring that and monitoring all the impact of the single decisions and measures of the town on achieving this aim. This is, of course, was a big topic, but not the only one. Youth culture. This means, yeah, we want to create more places for young people to meet, to be creative, to express themselves, where to make music and so on. Because Bolzano is like somehow a touristic place also, and it has a small university, but it's quite young, and the students and the university are not really visible yet. And many young people from the South Tyrol also, they go for their studies, they go to Austria, to Wien, to Innsbruck, to Graz, or to other towns in Italy to study. And in many cases, they don't come back, to just stay there because, yeah, maybe because on the one hand, there's more opportunities, working opportunities, but also because there's youth culture missing in town. Yeah, everything is like somehow oriented versus tourism, but not a lot. There's not a lot of possibilities for young people, and that's what we want to work on. And one achievement is that now the program of the new government, local government, we have the objective, or we have decided to build up a youth center, like a inter-ethnical, intercultural youth center. Finally, like this, we wanted to have that for a long time, and now we will have it in a couple of years. Like this will be a place for young people to meet. And the last topic, which is also, for us an important topic, is affordable housing. Because, housing is quite expensive in South Tyrol, in Bolzano, because of tourism also. It's difficult to find an apartment or a room, and it's expensive. But on the other hand, there is like 4,000 apartments empty in our town. About 11% of all the apartments in South Tyrol are empty for different reasons, because the owners, they keep it empty because they don't want to have problems with renters, or they keep it empty because they want the children to live there in a couple of years, but also a lot of speculation. So big real estate companies, they keep them empty, these apartments, because they know the prices are increasing, and they want to make more money with these apartments in the future. And that's why we have proposed different measures, and we managed to write to have them in our program of our local government, because the Greens are part of the government. For example, to increase the taxation on empty apartments, and to establish a guarantee fund that is guaranteeing the payment of the rent, even if maybe the tenant cannot pay the rent anymore. This has to be established together with the province. But also we want to promote alternative ways of housing, new forms of housing, for example, co-housing and intergenerational housing. Yeah, and so these three topics have been our main topics, and I'm quite happy that we managed to write them down and bring them into the program of the local government. Yeah, and maybe one word about our campaign. Yeah, so I think one thing was really successful. We made the problem is these empty houses are not really visible or not enough in town. So what we did is we created like wooden keys, and we put them in front of empty houses and empty apartments to make them visible. Yeah, and during the campaign we made a video out of that, a nicely done video, and I think it had a lot of impact, and we managed to put this topic on the agenda. And another small initiative was also was nice. A small flash mob. We wanted to present our candidates and our program, the 3 points, the 3 topics. And what we did is we went on a parking space in Bolzano, and we conquered one parking lot, and we put there a piece of plastic grass, and we put there a tent and our bicycles, and made some music. And we, of course, we invited the local press to show our program, like Green Bolzano, environment and climate, youth culture. So we made some music, and we were like singing some songs, and affordable housings, because if housing is not affordable, then we have to put our tents on the parking spaces. And that's what we did, and I think it was a nice thing, and we managed to get into the press in this way. So we are like very strong in activism, and you just have to be creative, and as Justine said also, you don't need a lot of budget, just be creative. Thanks.
Thank you. It was really inspiring. So now, Isaura, you can look at your campaign from the longer perspective. So what did it look like, and what topics did you mention? And you can also reveal a bit about your next campaign.
Yeah, time flies. 2 years ago already that we campaigned with a very dynamic group of Young Greens. So we had the local Green Party, and within the local Green Party, there were a few young people, I think like 6 or 7 young people who specifically campaigned about youth in our city. And it was very fun to do. It was very exciting and dynamic. When I compare the situation to the campaign situation of Justine and Pascal, I see a few differences, but also there are a lot of things in common as well. Like the topics we campaigned about also was about youth, of course, youth culture in our city, about the environment, climate change, and about different social topics like tackling poverty. So it was very similar about what we campaigned about, but it's also, of course, because we are all Greens, and it's a similar campaign more or less. But also a few differences, because here in Eeklo we already were doing policy for 6 years. So we were in the government for 6 years already with the Greens. We had a vice mayor as well for energy. So maybe I forgot to say that in the first part, but Eeklo is very known in Flanders for renewable energy projects. So we have a lot of windmills. We are doing very interesting stuff with warmth, rest warmth of the factories that we want to reuse in our city, and so on. But my colleague is more experienced in that field, so he works on that part. But we are very known in Flanders for those projects, and we also campaigned about that, so that we want to continue on that path of being a renewable energy city, and be more ambitious every year to make our goals. So that was also a very important part of the campaign. The first time we went into government, like 12 years ago, we were campaigning together with the Socialist Party. So it was a joint campaign, but 2 years ago, we decided to do our own campaign, and it was a very good move, I think, because we really could express our own identity, what we stand for, and it was very successful to just say, like, the Greens have a special identity, and yeah, we have some social parts that we want to express as well, but there are also a lot of differences between the Socialist Party and the Greens. So that's a thing that was different between 2 years ago and 12 years ago. Also important in our campaign was the energy, the vibe we want to express. Like Justine said, not all is about money to achieve your goal, but you have to, we were very successful in like establishing a general energy of positivity. We weren't negative about our city. We really were proud of our city, what we had accomplished. We were also positive about our future, although there are many challenges like climate change. We wanted to do our campaign in a manner that proved like we have a lot of young people. We want to build our future, and we think we will succeed. So that was our general line in the campaign, and it really worked. I guess if I can give any advice, I think just build up that energy with the people. We had a lot of new people who were known in our town, who could network and who could spread the vibe we wanted to create. And I think that's maybe a very good trick in future campaigns, which we will also use in our next one, I think. And also an important one is social interaction. So also a thing that doesn't cost any money, but going to markets, going to door-to-door campaigning is really successful, because you can, as a local government policymaker, you can really get a connection with the people in your city. You can talk about their personal lives, their personal experiences, and link that with the policy you want to provide for them. So that was also a very good thing to do, and very successful in our campaign. Maybe two little examples of actions we did, because we were, as Young Greens, we were also very activists. Right now, I guess that's the thing I miss the most, but maybe that's for another question. But like that activism you can do when you are young. I'm also very young, of course, but when you are doing policy making on a daily basis, you know, you will notice that fleets away, and that's not nice. I really want to pick up activism again. Maybe I will. When the campaigning starts again, you can be more activist again also. But there was one event in our city, like the European football game on a big screen. And yeah, there were a lot of plastic beverages. So our whole main square was filled with plastic cups and plastic bottles. And the Flemish Young Greens were also present in Eeklo that time, and we did a big campaign. We cleaned the whole main square of our city, and we collected everything in big plastic bags and showed people, like, you know, this has to be different. We have to go to plastic-free events. We have to look for an alternative, and right now we always use reusable cups at events. So that's a very nice action that we did. We also organized a youth debate between the different youth parties in our city. That was very important because we wanted to show that we were a party who wanted to work to a goal and not oppose each other, and not like do it in a fight mode that some politicians like to use, but really go to an energy of cooperation with everyone who makes the city better and who wants to make the city better. So that was also a very successful activity we did. And that is a few examples I wanted to give.
Yes, thank you for the answers on this question. So now I will ask my last question, and then the questions from the audience and from you to yourself. So then my last question is, in Poland, local government is often perceived as uninteresting, both for politicians and for people. And so my question is, do you recognize your local government work as your dream job or dream political position, or more just as a step in your political career? So maybe start now with Pascal.
Yeah. Yeah, like maybe I have to tell my story a little bit. Like, I was working in applied science a couple of years ago, and I'm an environmental engineer. So my objective was to save the world somehow, or to contribute to that somehow. Yeah. And I was thinking that I can do that, like in doing research. Yeah, doing applied research and really implement innovative buildings, or change the energy system, make it more renewable, and make buildings more energy efficient. But I realized that if you really want things to change, then you have to influence public opinion, and you have to influence the behavior of people, and you have to influence the decision makers. Because research can propose things and give input to politics, but then somebody has to implement that. And that's how I finished up into politics. And I finished up into becoming a green activist. Yeah, and activism is nice, as we heard. Like we have a nice culture of activism here in South Tyrol. But then I think, of course, we also need young people, green people, female people taking the right decisions on all levels, like from city quarter to city council to regional council and so on. And so I think it's just a logical next step is to try to make some experience in local politics. And of course, it can be like a step into starting a big political career, of course. But also it's very important to implement the change also on a local local level. Think globally, act locally. This is I think it's true. And and of course, you as a politician, when you have a political role, you have more visibility, and you can use that for your campaign, for your activism. And I can just encourage people to candidate and to try, and as you heard, some people that are like Isaura is now vice mayor, and she says, Justine said, yeah, like when you work on a higher level, then you wish to work on a lower level because it's more concrete and more specific and more close to the people. And so, yeah, I think we need green, young green activists and female politicians on all levels. And yeah, so just do it. Thanks.
Thank you for your answer. Now let's ask Justina about the same.
Yeah, I wanted to just agree and love things that Pascal said, and just like note that males, females, and non-females or non-males also, like we should have all kinds of perspectives in politics because they do represent the society. And if we make our politics an environment where we, like any kind of perspective can survive, we all are benefiting from that. But going back to the question, I would start with that I would not encourage people to look at politics as a career, in a sense that looking from activist point of view, I really resonate, and I think a lot of people from activism going to politics have been like, the realization is that you can do only until this as an activist. And then if you want to make systemic change, you have to be part of politics. You have to be like more involved, either being a politician or being closely aligned with political parties. Therefore, it's important. Yeah, I agree that if we want to change things from political perspective, but I would, looking from this kind of a mission-based perspective, that we should be focusing on what are the missions, what are the policies that we want to implement, and how that will benefit the climate, the society, etc., the economy. We have to restructure that as well if we want to tackle environmental change, and not looking at politics as a career, because I really don't hate like this narrative that there are like real career politicians, and that makes that we're creating this kind of a class of people that are working only to be in politics and to just like be this kind of, you know, specialists of politics. And that takes away the space for people from working class, from different perspectives, to come into politics and share their perspectives, and specialists from environmental change, environmental scientists, people who are working on any kind of activism. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be, there always will be people who are attracted to politics and will go into politics because they like it, but politics is a tool. Let's look at it as a career in politics as a tool to make a change. So it's really, I don't have a definite answer to your question. I was really reluctant to candidate and to be in politics, and we can talk about how it's, I don't know how it's in Western Europe, but in Eastern Europe, being part in politics is really difficult. It's not associated with the democracy, let's say. There are a lot of people who are, like corruption is one word that we use a lot here. We joke about young people going to politics, that they're all going to be, you know, making big money now and going to power. And that really creates, you don't want to be associated with the class or like a job that is generally looked at being corrupt. But we have to kind of change that, and we're doing that. So it's hard to say this is a dream job. It was hard for me to take it and be the change I want to see. I was working, as I mentioned, in city council. I had a good job with career perspective, and I was working in city. I'm an urban planner, so for me, it was always logical that I want to be, if I want to be working on some kind of aspect, then I want to be in the city. I'm not really interested as of now on government or the national government and national politics as much. as I love seeing the change around me. And I mentioned this kind of a change in bike lanes that we have been discussing for the past month, and I'm living kind of next door to that street. And for me, it makes like the big difference that I can see the decisions we made happening on the streets where I live. But that's the benefit, right? It's that's what motivates us to get out of bed in mornings and to proceed, because I don't know, like I would be really interested to hear colleagues of how hard it has been for you in politics, because every decision you make is scrutinized. Everything you tweet will be scrutinized. I get a lot of hate tweets about like how I not using the Latvian language correctly. If I have one mistake, I'll get scrutinized. If I say something right, I'll get scrutinized. I mean, it's not something big. I'm not a big politician, but I get some of the hate online as well. So in short, I don't see myself building a political career. That might happen, it might not. I want to focus on the things I can do to make things better. Housing, I mean, it's problematic in Riga as well. The environment, looking at like how we can help more socially vulnerable people, social services in cities. In my city, for example, and that is what I'm focusing on, and that I think should be the way young politicians in general should, I mean, not should, but might approach this issue, and seeing that like if you have the topics you want to work for and you're passionate against, politics is a tool to achieve that.
Thank you, especially for highlighting the dangers of treating politics as a career. It was really interesting. So now, Isaura.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so first, I totally agree with Justine that politics is not a career. I think everyone starts with a passion and idealism for changing their city and changing the world. Maybe a little bit naive, but that's our goal. And so it doesn't rhyme with seeing politics as a career or a stepping stone to further personal development. So I don't see it that way as well. And actually, you have the two parts of the job. The first one is like you make the policy, you are doing activities, you are doing actions to improve your city. And the second part is the politics part. You have to discuss with your colleagues, you have to find common ground, you have to find, it's very exhausting. And actually, I don't like that part at all. I don't like politics. Maybe it's a bit strange, but I like thinking about my city, about improving it, about moving forward. But you know, those political discussions are sometimes very exhausted. And actually, I notice it as well that everything you do, every choice you make, especially if you are in the highest level of making the daily decisions, then you are scrutinized for every decision you make. There's always one group or a few persons that feel attacked or that don't like the things you do, and you hear it on a daily basis. So it's very important to also tell that to young people, like doing politics is a fun thing. Sure, you can really build something and you can really have an impact, but it also comes with a price. Sometimes you have to be strong enough, you have to be very mentally capable to distance yourself from all the shit you have to endure. Because, for example, maybe one speaking example is, I think last year in February, I wrote a tweet about climate protests here in Flanders. And the Minister of Education was like telling in the newspapers, like, you have to be hard on those on those young people, because they have to be in school, they have to learn. Schools should punish those young people who are marching in the streets. It isn't good. You have to go back to school. So I was an activist, you know, I'm a young activist, and I want to react to that, and I want to say, no, that's not the way schools should perceive this climate movement. You should work with those young people to get those protests and those movements into school, to learn about it, to know how it is to defend your rights as people, to ask, and especially young people, because they don't get to vote, you know, they have to do something to make their views understandable to the policymakers. And it's very important for schools to work with the young people, to let them know what their possibilities are and what they can do to express their views. So that was my reaction to the minister on Twitter, and it really exploded in my face. So there were newspaper journalists calling me like, you know, you want young people not to go to school, and it's not a good thing. They have to be in school, and you are encouraging them to give up their future and that stuff. So it was really out of context, and it was a big explosion of everything in once. So that are the things you encounter if you are someone who works on a certain level in politics. You are a public figure. And even though you want to be an activist and you want to, sometimes react to things instantaneously, you have to know that there can be consequences and that people look at you in a different way. And I don't regret that I sent that tweet at all. I don't regret it. But now I know better what can be the consequences, and I didn't know that before I wrote the tweet. So that's something I learned during my time as a vice mayor here in Eeklo.
Thank you, sir. That was all my questions.